Live coding with Matt Groves. This is my 7th such stream of live coding, and today we're going to not quite pick up where I left off last episode, but I'm going to continue to talk about some of the same things we covered last time. That is more Docker, more JavaScript, and more eventing. I don't think I got very far in the eventing stuff. I think I showed a basic example of that, but in the meantime, I've gotten the Docker stuff figured out. So I've got the simulator running inside Docker with everything else. And I've actually started on the integration code for the eventing. And just a refresher, I keep showing this image, but it's a really helpful image, is in previous streams, we got this Kafka stream to move data from home delivery into Couchbase. We've got this CSV export to move data from loyalty program into Couchbase, and I also built the REST API that allows Couchbase to pull data from the online store. And so at this point, I now have the capability of writing the integration code here. What the integration code is going to do is going to take all these disparate pieces and assemble them into a single customer, hence the customer 360. Imagine all these different systems as different pieces of a pie, and a pie being a single customer, a single person. And this customer 360 running on Couchbase is putting them all together into one pie. You can view a customer as a whole, view all their information at a glance, query all your customer data for analytics and predictions and all kinds of cool stuff. We're not getting to that part yet. We're still at the integration part, the ingestion part. So up until this little red box here, this integration, which uses this eventing box right here. But we're going to get to some more stuff in the next major series I'm going to be doing, which is also in Customer 360. And that's, okay, we got the data put together. What do we actually do with them? But in the meantime, we're going to work on hopefully finishing up this week the ingestion and piecing it all together with eventing. So I'm going to talk about that. So before we get to that, just a few things I want to go over here. So Star Trek was last Friday. I'm wearing my Star Trek Excelsior shirt here. You can see the Star Trek logo is this S right here with the little Star Trek looking communicator badge thing. So that was this Friday. I was volunteer there, so I showed up. I'm not really sure what I was going to do. I did basically the same stuff I did last time, which was just sort of run around and make sure all the vendors have electricity and stuff like that. And they let me proctor a room, which was very nice. I got a great room with lots of speakers who were total pros, or at least they acted like they're total pros, and had no major hiccups at all with any of the speakers. And they were all very good sessions. Oh, speaking of coffee, one casualty, though, is I had a Star Trek mug as a speaker gift from, I don't know, ages ago, seems like, and the handle broke on it. So my Star Trek mug is RIP. But anyway, Star Trek went well. I stayed for the movie afterward, 3 hours of Avengers stuff, and, I'm not a huge Marvel guy at all, but it was fine. It was fine to see all those threads kind of come together at the end. So I'm not going to say anything else about the movie. Just a reminder, we got Team Live Coders here. I feel a sneeze coming on, so hold on. Don't you hate that when you feel like a sneeze is coming on, it doesn't actually happen? Anyway, so Team Live Coders, in case you haven't been in my room for a while, I actually qualified for and was invited to join the Team Live Coders. Hey, Codebase Alpha, how are you? Thanks for coming in the channel and hanging out with us. I joined Team Live Coders, so why don't I just bring up on the browser here. And this is a Twitch team of a bunch of people who do live coding. And it looks like we got... so you can see the whole list of people here. I guess Fritz is streaming right now too, which means that I'm probably going to be very limited if people show up to my room, but that's okay. Anyway, these are all the members of the team that all meet these qualifications down here. They're all great. I've seen a lot of them. They're all doing some great stuff in their live coding stream. They're all affiliates, so definitely check them out. Check out the Live Coders stream. I also want to give another plug to the Awesome Developers streaming list. And this is something that anyone can join who's a live coder on whatever platform, Twitch or YouTube or Mixer or whatever else people are using out there. And this is just a list of people who are streaming and what they're streaming about typically. And so let's just do a search, see if anyone else has added database to theirs. Oh, I'm seeing Go Maestro Go is one that I've not seen before who has database in his tags. So this is one I need to follow and check out. Go Maestro Go on Twitch. I don't know if he's streaming right now or not, or whoever this is streaming right now. They're hosting Codephobia. So I'm going to follow Go Maestro Go and see what kind of cool database stuff they're doing. Anyway, that's what you can do with this list. You can go through here and look for interesting little tags. If you're into JavaScript, there's a lot of people writing JavaScript. If you're into C# or game development or Rust or whatever else, you can find someone here who's streaming about that and check them out. Okay, so that's cool. What else we got? All right, so let's get down to some code. When I last left you on Thursday, I was having some trouble getting my ASP.NET app running inside Docker. And what it basically boiled down to was this is a problem of using preview versions and being on the cutting edge, is that on Visual Studio, on my machine, I had Preview 4 or Preview 3, some long version number. I don't remember the exact... I get distracted by my beeping phone here. Oh, it's just one of my coworkers plugging my stream right now in our Couchbase Slack. So thank you for anyone who's joining in from Couchbase. Welcome. Anyway, so I had one version of ASP.NET Preview installed on my machine, and then when I went to deploy to Docker, the Docker image had a different version. So, I was struggling with this, and it was really kind of annoying because it compiled fine on my machine, but then it actually compiled in Docker, and it failed to compile. So what I had to do was just basically I had a cached image, the base image of ASP.NET Core on my machine. I had to just remove that image and get the latest one. And once I did that, and I also updated the preview on my local machine, so they're both in sync as of at least today. They're both in sync. So I had to make some minor code changes, but now it all works on Docker, and it's all deployed and everything's fine there. And I had to make some changes to that code. All my connection strings are hard coded, which is probably a bad idea. But inside Docker host, you need to refer to the servers as something other than localhost. So I had to change the connection strings. So maybe I'll just show some of this code here. So in my startup, you can see my connection strings here. So before, this was localhost, this was localhost, and this was localhost, and this was localhost. So I changed those all to be their Docker names. So inside the Docker host, you can refer to them as the actual name of the container that's running. So this one is called MySQL, this one's called LoyaltyDB. I call the Couchbase one DB, etc. So I had to refer to those differently. And probably what I should do is I should create config files, one for development, which runs on my Windows machine here, and one that runs inside Docker in what I'll call production or whatever. But I haven't got around to that yet. Not a big deal right now. And again, not super important for the tutorial that I'm writing, which is the ultimate goal of all this stuff, is I'm writing a tutorial for docs.couchbase.com. So this doesn't really factor in the tutorial because infrastructure varies so widely between enterprises that to focus on this weird Docker conglomeration I'm doing would be, sort of narrow the scope of the tutorial. So anyway, that's one thing I had to change. What else? Hangfire. So yes, I was using, no, not Hangfire. Hangfire. Hangfire is what it is. So with Hangfire, what you do is you create this Hangfire dashboard, and by default, it gives access, it restricts access just to localhost. So only if you're on localhost can you get access to the Hangfire dashboard, which you need to monitor the jobs and so on. So if you're not using localhost, which if I'm in Docker, it's technically not. It's going to be outside the Docker host. You need to specify some authorization class for that. So you need to implement a authorization class here, and I called it allow anyone authorization. So mine's a very simple implementation. It just says anyone's authorized, return true. Codebase Alpha, I use Hangfire to run my Twitch, Slack, Discord job as a background job. It works well. Yes, Codebase Alpha, I actually stopped by your stream yesterday or Sunday, I don't remember. And you weren't talking about Hangfire, you were going over some Code Rush stuff, I believe. But I noticed in your Visual Studio project, I saw Hangfire in there. I was like, all right, another person using Hangfire. Hangfire is great. And actually, let me bring it. Hangfire is also open source. Hangfire. Is it in Hangfire? GitHub/Hangfire? That's not it. Hangfire GitHub. Hangfire.io. Yes. So there was a recent issue that I discovered with Hangfire. I don't know if I discovered it, but I brought it up. And this is something that I ran into as I was making changes to my code. Is when I refactored some of my code to be in a different namespace, that would actually break this line right here, because it's going to try to update this job, but the data stored in whatever database you're using with Hangfire, I'm using Couchbase, the data does not, data still thinks the old namespace is being used. So I ran into this problem when I just refactored, did some reorganization, that Hangfire would bomb out and say, hey, I can't load this because I don't see this namespace anymore, because it's not in that namespace anymore. So I brought that up. I said, is this a known issue? How do you work around this? And then the easy workaround is to delete the job and start it again. But it looks like this guy, who is one of the main contributors, I believe, member of Hangfire, took this on and made an update, which will be in the next release. So you won't have that problem anymore with if you change namespace of the Hangfire jobs you're running. You may run into this Codebase Alpha, or maybe you were more organized from the beginning than I was. It's not released yet. It's his upcoming 1.7.2 release. There's a couple issues in it right now, but that's one of them. Yeah, SQL Server is the default if you're using Hangfire. That's what Hangfire comes with when you install it, but there's a lot of plugins for other databases to use as a backend for Hangfire. And I happen to use the Couchbase one, and that's why I came across Hangfire, because I discovered that they had a Couchbase plugin. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. What's a Couchbase plugin for Hangfire? So what's Hangfire do? And I looked into it, and I thought, this is pretty awesome. So I've been using it ever since. Okay, so that's that. So this allows me to use Hangfire dashboard within Docker and expose it outside Docker. All right, what else? One other thing I want to point out is I'm using --link in Docker. Let me bring this up here. So you can see down here some of my databases. I use this --link, so I'm linking images to other images. This is, I think, deprecated or will be deprecated soon, which doesn't mean it won't work. It just means it's not suggested you do this anymore. So if you see me using --link, just keep in mind that's not necessarily something you want to do when you're using Docker. Now, for my purposes, again, I'm not trying to build an infrastructure from the ground up here. I'm just trying to get some pieces working together. It's fine for now. That will not be in my tutorial. But I think the suggested, what you do instead is you do a Docker Compose file and create or create a network and have these talk to each other inside Docker network. So. Anyway, that probably, if I did that from the beginning, it'd probably be easier, but it'd be a lot of extra work to go back and refactor that right now. And again, it's not crucial to my tutorial, so I'm going to skip that. Okay, one other thing I want to bring up is, this was something I ran into. I was having trouble with Docker, so I got the Docker image running, compiled, and running inside the Docker host, and I was able to get to Hangfire. I was able to get to Swagger. But my endpoints didn't work. They would all return like a 404. And I I went through a couple different things to just try to figure out, I did a new project from scratch running in Docker to see if that worked, and it did. So then I figured out, well, what's the difference between that project and my project? And it turns out it's this difference right here. This in the configure part of startup.cs, you need to put in app.useEndpoints and then endpoints map controllers. This is kind of baffling to me why I needed to have this. So I tried to search some documentation, like why is this affecting a thing in Docker? So I tweeted this out, and I just asked anybody, does anybody know what's going on with use endpoints in Docker and ASP.NET Core? And what I got is a response from David Fowler, of all people, which is very cool, asking if I was using Preview 4, which I am. He also tagged in the James Newton King and a very spicy boy, which is Ryan Nowak. And these guys are part of the ASP.NET Microsoft team. And he asked if I'm using routing, and my response is, yeah, I'm using Preview. That's right. And of course I'm doing routing. Isn't everyone doing routing? I was kind of confused about that question. So anyway, James Newton King, yes, the Newton King of Newtonsoft, he says that there's some blog posts coming talking about routing in 3.0. So I haven't looked at any of this stuff yet. And I think Ryan also tweeted some other stuff in this somewhere else in this thread. So something going on here that I need to check out. Hey, Gary Wilson 4, thanks for coming by. What you working on? I went over this already. I'll just do a quick recap of it here. Excuse me. But also Mike, thanks for dropping in. Good to see you. I'm working on, this is something I've been working on for the last half dozen episodes, is the Customer 360 data ingestion system to pull data from all these different pieces into a data platform like Couchbase and to integrate them together into a complete picture of a customer for other purposes like a dashboard or querying, making recommendations, things like that. Games Mike. So I pronounce it like Mike. Okay, Games Mike. Thanks for dropping by and checking out the stream. So that's what I'm working on right now, is the ingestion piece. And today, I'll hopefully be getting to more of the integration part of it, which is the last piece of this Customer 360 architecture that I'm using to write a tutorial that's going to live on the couchbase.com site. So anyway, if you're interested in that routing stuff, I haven't got a chance to read these blog posts yet, but it looks like it's some difference going from ASP.NET Core 2.x to ASP.NET Core 3.x. So need to check that stuff out. But I haven't gotten around to that yet, but it's out there. So all right, I started on eventing. The eventing function. Since the last time, I showed you some basics like how to use eventing in Couchbase. And what I've actually done is I've implemented part of this integration box right here. I've actually implemented part of that. So I want to show you what I've got so far. Let's close some of these windows here. So here's Couchbase. And all the data being ingested goes into this bucket right here called staging. So in here you can see I've got this loyalty data. This comes from the loyalty system. And I've got other documents in here. This is data coming from the MySQL database, which is the home delivery system that has data in there. So these all have different pieces of a customer. And they're all in this staging bucket. To start with, that's sort of where they start inside Couchbase. And then what I want to do is I want to piece them together into this Customer 360 bucket. And you see I've already kind of done that here. There's 63 pieces of data here, and I've joined them together where applicable into 52 documents. So there's all the same data basically, but combined into 52 total documents here. So I'll just give you an example. So this is a document, and I'm joining them. I'm sort of combining them based on email address is the value I'm pivoting them on. I'm combining them together with. That can be problematic because email address can change in a lot of systems. But just to keep things simple, and there's a whole field of study basically on how to combine data about a person. I think in marketing it's known as householding. You can figure out a customer household based on shared data like address and phone number and email and all these other different factors. And that's a whole other area. So I'm going to skip that and just stick to email address for now. But you can see in this document, I've brought in basically just the loyalty system data. And so this one isn't super interesting, but let me show you this query here. So I ran this one earlier. And what I'm doing is I'm finding in my Customer 360 data here, the customers, and then how many cross-references each customer has. And ultimately, I want to get a maximum of 3. If you look back at my diagram, 3 different pieces, so 3 different cross-references. Right now, I only have 2. I haven't gotten to the online store part yet. But you can see some of them only have 1 piece, some of them have 2 pieces. This is because a customer may not live in both these systems in your enterprise. They may be in home delivery or loyalty program or both. And they may be in all 3 or some subset of these 3. So it's our job to piece those together as much as we can. So we've got, for instance, an example here of Megan Strauss. And this is all fake data, by the way. But if I go back over here to my Customer 360 document and look up Megan, you can see I've got a lot more data on Megan. I've got her entire address, and I've got 2 cross-references, and I've got loyalty points in here. So I've got 1 cross-reference to the home delivery system, and I'm bringing in her password from here, and the whole password thing we can talk about if you're interested. The ID that came from the home delivery system's in there, and then another cross-reference to the loyalty system, which is a different ID and a different password. And the loyalty points themselves, I've decided to put them at the root level of the document. I don't know, because I've got everything else in profile. I didn't really think profile kind of loyalty points didn't really fit in profile, but we can move them either play. So that's an example of a customer that has 2 cross-references in there, and that is this is the sort of end state of this first part of the tutorial. Is we're ingesting data and we're getting a complete picture of customers in here, and I can run queries on those customers to get interesting stuff like, okay, who's the most cross-referenced? Who's the least cross-referenced? Who has the most loyalty points? So if I wanted to find the most loyal customers and actually send them something because I now have their address, I can do that now because I've got both pieces of a customer together in one system. Okay, and the way this works is I've got a ingestion function. You can see it's called ingestion customer 360. And this is part of the Couchbase eventing system. So eventing is a service that runs in Couchbase. And one of the parts of eventing, the only part right now really, is functions. And these functions can execute some JavaScript code based on documents being changed in Couchbase, on data being changed in Couchbase. So this is a function that whenever a document is updated, then I can run this code. And you can see this, let me go back here to eventing. This function is monitoring the staging bucket. So all the data coming in, this function is monitoring. And it's going to be putting data down here, you can see, one of these bindings is the Customer 360 bucket. So it's going to monitor this bucket, and I can put data into this bucket. So it's kind of a bridge between the different buckets there. So let's, I could show you the JavaScript here in the actual browser. I don't tend to really use this like browser window here to do my coding. So let me show you, I'm over here in Visual Studio, I've got the same exact code. And this is JavaScript. Now, when I say JavaScript, I really mean just plain JavaScript here. I can't bring in other packages, I can't bring in NPM, stuff like that yet. So there's a couple extra constructs that Couchbase gives us, but it's really just very simple JavaScript here. So here is the onUpdate function. So this is the, let me see, yeah, it's kind of big. This is the function right here. So it barely fits on the screen. But this is the code that's going to run when a document is added or changed inside the staging bucket. And for the most part, we're looking at added. We're not going to be changing documents too much in staging. So what it does is it gets 2 parameters. These are passed in here by Couchbase. One is the document itself, the actual data of the document. And the other is metadata about the document, which for the most part, all we care about is the document key, the piece of text that identifies the document. And so if I go back over to here, if I go back to buckets and staging, you can see this column here, this is the key, and this is the actual document itself, which is going to be JSON. It's going to be a JavaScript object. All right, so that's what's coming in. And the first thing I want to do is check, is this a user delivery document? So I've written a function called isUserDelivery. And if it's a user delivery document, we have to do user delivery stuff. And I've got some really poor spacing going on right now. Oh no, yeah, okay, that's right. Okay, so the first thing we do is we're going to get the email address from that document. I've got a sample, no, right here, sample delivery document. And this has got some of the noise stripped out, but you can see that if I go to payload.after.email, I can get the email address of the incoming data. That's what I'm doing here, document.payload.after.email. So now I have the email address. Code base alpha, I'd have to put in curly braces for that if statement. Yeah, you're talking about this one right here. Totally reasonable to do that. For statements like this, I mean, if I was a C# guy, I wouldn't probably use an if here. If this was C#, that is, I'd probably do something along these lines or use like a null coalesce operator. I have written a lot of JavaScript in my career, but I'm not nearly as much as like C# or even VB for that matter. So yeah, I think that's a good point. We should probably do that just for clarity there, especially when the spacing can get a little bit weird. So good point there, Codebase Alpha. All right, so I have the email address. So the first thing I need to do is see, is there already a Customer 360 document for this email address in that Customer 360 bucket? So I've created a function here to get that document if it exists. If it doesn't, it's going to return null. And so if it is null, then we're going to make it into just an empty object to start with. So no matter what, after line 21, we have an object here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, all right, run this document through this function to update it from the user delivery data that's coming in. So I've got two things going in. I've got the customer document, which at the very beginning is going to be just an empty object. Going forward, it's going to be, it's going to have some information in it already. And then the document coming in to the staging bucket itself. And so that's going to return the updated document here. This is going to be this is basically have a method that is not going to modify the parameters. It's going to return a new document. So we're kind of going a little bit of functional here. And the last thing I'm going to do is I have this cust dictionary, which up here is a binding to the actual Customer 360 bucket, which you can just think of as a big dictionary, as a bunch of values, and I'm addressing the one that corresponds to email, and save that document there. So this right here is saving that document to the Customer 360 bucket. And finally, I haven't gotten to this yet, but I'm going to store that email address in this variable. We're going to use that later. All right? So this code only happens if, this should probably be, yeah. This code's only going to happen if the document is for user delivery. If it's not user delivery, we keep going and we keep checking. Is it a loyalty member document? I have another function that checks that. And I'm doing some logging here. And doing a similar thing, I'm grabbing the email. It's going to be in a different spot this time. So if I look at loyalty document, it's just going to be a nice, flat, simple JSON file here. I can just say doc.email and get the email address. And again, we're going to find the Customer 360 document if it exists. Do the same thing down here. So we'll add Codebase Alpha's braces. And do the same thing. A different function here, update doc from loyalty. So it's going to be a different type of mapping. And again, save that document to Customer 360. And also make note of the email address. So chances are, any given document coming into staging, only one of these two is going to run. Because it's either a user delivery document or a loyalty member document. It can't be both of those. But in the end result, it's going to combine, let's say one user delivery document comes in for Matt Groves. It's going to process it here. The next document comes in for Matt Groves for loyalty. It's going to process it here. The end result is a single document for Matt Groves in Customer 360. So we're joining them together. All right, so here's some of the code that I've got down here to determine if it's user delivery or not. So I can sort of examine the document coming in and say, this is one way I could do it, to say, well, if I've got DB server 1 here, that's the name of my loyalty or my user delivery server, so I can go by that. I could also look at like the customers field, the DB field. I could look at a combination of all these things. I can see that it's MySQL. All those things tip me off that this is a user delivery document. And if it's not, return false. Similarly, with loyalty member, all I can really check is the points value here. Codebase Alpha, really good real-world problem to cover on stream. Very cool. Yeah, I agree. This is a little more fun, I think, than sort of the. I could do some Hello World stuff. I could walk through some features of Couchbase, but I think it's a little more interesting to show actual use cases that you might use a tool like Couchbase for, or you're going to use Kafka and you're going to use ASP.NET and JavaScript for. Real world can be a little messier sometimes, so it's good to show this kind of stuff. So loyalty member, if you look at this document here, like all these fields, those could possibly exist in other types of documents, but points is something that's unique to loyalty program. Now, what I should probably do is in my CSV export, I should just create a field here artificially called loyalty, so I don't have to switch on a field like points, which may change in the future. But let's keep it like that for now. So that's that. This is the function to check to see if a document exists. And so this is kind of messy, unfortunately. The way it works right now in Couchbase 6 is kind of messy. This is going to be improved in the next version. But in JavaScript, when you have a dictionary like this, if you try to look up by key and it doesn't exist, it's going to typically return undefined. However, this is not, right now anyway, Pat and Ben? Pat and Ben? Thank you very much for following. I appreciate it. Bada bing, bada boom. So anyway, what was I saying? This is, Couchbase does not implement this as strictly a JavaScript with the same behavior as a JavaScript dictionary. So what happens if you look it up by an email and that document doesn't exist? It's going to actually throw an exception. So that's why I have this wrapped in a try catch. Because I just want to swallow that exception. I'm not, this really is kind of sloppy because this is not exceptional behavior, but that's the way it's implemented right now. So I swallow that exception, I log it. I don't really need to log it, but I log it and then return null. So I'm sort of simulating what the JavaScript behavior should be. Now in the next version of Couchbase, this will be fixed. So that finds a document by the email key if it exists. This is going to update a document from loyalty data. Now this is a little complicated. I'm not going to go through all this, but basically this is the existing or new customer 360 document. This is the document coming in from staging. And so it's kind of a left-right bit of code here. I'm saying, okay, create that profile class if it does, or that sub-object doesn't exist. Update the name, update the points, and then we add these cross references. Now this part right here, I have to admit that this is probably something I could write better if I understood JavaScript better. But unfortunately, I can't bring in something like underscore or other functionality into this just yet anyway. So I just implement it the way that I would implement it in any language I was just kind of learning for the first time, is with a for loop to check to see if this cross-ref exists for loyalty. If it does, then update it. Otherwise, create a new one. Create a new xref and put it in there and do this push method here. So this could probably be reduced to some better code if I was a better JavaScript coder, but I'm not. This is all open source, by the way. This is all on GitHub. So if you have an idea for implementing this better in JavaScript, please let me know or send me a pull request. And I do a similar thing down here. This is a little more left-right code because there's a little more data in here. But this customer doc comes in, which is an existing or new customer 360 doc, and user delivery, which is a new staging document for user delivery. I'm setting this. I should probably do that up here, shouldn't I? I do that up here. Okay. Yeah, I'm putting a user marker on these documents. This is really only matters for the very first time that it's run. So again, if there's no profile, create it and put a name on it, put the address on it. If address line 2 exists, then put that on there as address 2. So you can see I'm kind of doing a little bit of mapping here, kind of standardizing the names, phone instead of phone number, etc. And again, this same sort of cross-reference code down here, except it's home delivery this time, and home delivery here. So that's it. That's all the code that I've written so far. And that is what's giving us these nice combined Customer 360 documents. So right here you can see the cross-ref has one for home delivery and has one for loyalty. And you can see that the external IDs are different because those point to other external systems, external to Couchbase. And so this is the ID that I would need if I wanted to look that up in another system. And this is the password. And I'm putting password in here. I don't know if I probably should, but notice just the different passwords for different systems. That's kind of the main thing I'm conveying here. Code itself, you could probably extract the cross-reference code into common functions. I probably could, because there is some similarities between these two. So it would... I mean, the similarity is kind of ID and password. I mean, this part is probably Rhinosaurus Rex. Hey, y'all. Hey, thanks for stopping by, Rhinosaurus. Thanks for joining. This part is probably, I mean, I don't know. It would be, again, my JavaScript is kind of weak. So this would be, I'd be nervous about doing that. But the other thing, these look kind of similar. Is it just ID and password here and ID and password here? In reality, I think as the code advances and changes, these parts are probably going to be the ones changing the most. So I'd want to extract them out. Hey, what are we building? Yep, I get that question a lot. Maybe I should create one of those Twitch bots to answer that question. But I'm working on the Customer 360 system. This is what I'm working on for all my streams. We're pulling in parts of a customer, of a person's information, into one main data platform, and integrating them into a single piece of data instead of a bunch of little pieces of data all split up. And I'm working on the integration part. This is running in JavaScript here. That's actually pulling all these pieces of data together. And just to review, this is what they look like. This is what a customer, a person looks like when they're joined together from, in this case, 2 different systems, home delivery and loyalty. We're combining them into one single document that contains both their home delivery data and their loyalty data in one single place. And go back over here to buckets. We can see the math adds up. We've got 63 documents here in staging. And if I go back to my query, you can see we've got 10 documents here that have 2 cross-references. So if we do the math, 63 minus 10 is 62. Or sorry, 63 minus 10 is 53. However, there is one extra document in here that is related to CSV tracking. So that one doesn't count. So we have 62 minus those 10 that we combined, 52. So the math adds up. So everything's working as expected. Okay, so let's get to running some new stuff. What I've got here is I've got if this runs, or if this runs, then we've got an email address. We've got an email address somewhere. So the next thing we need to do is actually make requests to the online store REST APIs. This is data we're going to be pulling instead of getting pushed to us. So we can say if email to pull online CRM. So if that email exists, then we're going to make requests to online store HTTP API. Well, that's the same thing I made down here. It's the same comment. They're curl requests. And I only need to make these if I have an email address. So if for some reason a document comes in that's not a loyalty member and it's not a user delivery, then I can safely ignore it. I don't imagine what that situation would be right now, but in the future, maybe we have a new type of document we're ingesting and haven't got around to making the logic changes yet, so just safe to ignore it for now. Okay. So we know we're going to pull the online CRM. So we need to do this again. We say, let's find the customer doc. And if it exists, we're going to pull it. And we're going to use this email address here to pull it. And we're going to, that document is going to exist, right? Yes. That document is going to exist because we created it in one of these two situations up here. So I don't need to do a check on it. It's going to exist. I might still want to do a check just in case, but I think at this point it's safe to assume that document does exist. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in this branch of logic here. Okay, so now we're going to say customer doc equals update. This is going to be a new function. Update customer doc from online store. We're going to pass in the existing customer doc, and really that's all we need to do because everything else is going to come over from an HTTP request. And then after we've got that information updated, we're going to save the document to the Customer 360 document. And that should be it. So I have to write this function here. Update customer doc from online store, and we're going to expect a customer doc to be coming into this function. All right. Now, if we go back to, not that one, this one over here, this is the Swagger UI for everything in my simulator, but all I really care about are these three endpoints down here, this online store endpoint. So the first one is we're going to pull a, whoops, not that one. We're going to get a document. Let's just go with Megan again. Oh, so many tabs open. We're going to see if we can find customer details by email address. So I'll go and execute that. And what I get as a result is, this is the online store information for that customer. So this looks very similar to what we saw in the loyalty system, but notice there's no points in here. So this is just the details of a customer as far as the online store system is concerned. That's really the first step. So this is the URL here that I'm going to be calling. Now inside of Couchbase, eventing, so let's just paste this in here. There is one of the pieces of functionality that it adds to plain JavaScript is this curl function. And curl allows us to make requests to some other endpoint. Now, this is actually a blog post that I'm going to be publishing later today, is that there are some changes between curl in Couchbase 6.0 and the upcoming Couchbase 6.5. The curl function that exists in 6.0, which is what I'm using for this tutorial right now, is is a little wonky. It doesn't give you a lot of the capabilities, or at least in a standard way, that you'd expect from curl. So there are some changes coming to curl. However, I'm using 6.0, so I'm going to stick with the old curl syntax for now. But I also need to, and we may get to this today, I need to write a separate version of this function here that uses the correct, the new, updated, more usable, more standard curl syntax that's coming in 6.5. So as I write this, I'm probably going to abstract some of that curl stuff into its own function so that I can easily switch them back and forth. All right, take a little breather here. I've been talking for a while. Let's see, we got about 10 viewers in the channel right now. So just a reminder that this channel is very friendly to questions. And the mantra I've been saying every episode is, once something my father told me when I was young, he said the only stupid question, because I asked him, I said once, I was going to ask him a question, I said, never mind, it was a stupid question. And he stopped me, he said, listen, Matt, no, the only stupid question is the one you don't ask. So please, any question you ask about anything you see on the screen here at all, it doesn't have to be related to all this Customer 360 stuff. It could just be like Codebase Alpha brought up. Why don't you use brackets around the if statement? It's a really good point. We can talk about that. Why are you using Visual Studio Code? Why are you using Couchbase? All this stuff. Great questions to ask. Anything that occurs to you at all, feel free to ask. Be polite, of course. That's one of the rules of the channel is don't make yourself obnoxious. But any question, in earnest, asked in earnest, I'm happy to answer. So just a quick reminder there. Okay. Is there any plan to enable you to import JS packages into Couchbase? For example, you could use something like Axios for HTTP. I assume you mean HTTP commands. Oh, thank you for the follow there, Dacron12. Appreciate that. Bada bing, bada boom to you. Any plan to import packages? So I know we've talked about it a lot. It's a tricky area because this code all runs server side on the Couchbase server. So, I'm sure it's totally possible that they could allow you to import packages, but that opens up a pretty big can of worms. And all this eventing stuff in Couchbase is relatively young. I mean, this eventing just came out in Couchbase last year for the first time, so we're just starting to get customers and users who are taking advantage of eventing, and that's one of the reasons we're listening to customer feedback about curl and making some improvements to it. So I'm not on the engineering team, the eventing team, or anything like that, so I can only speculate. But my guess is they're very hesitant to open it up to the entire JavaScript ecosystem, because you could really introduce some serious problems into that, by allowing that. Just off the top of my head, think about the left pad stuff. You don't want these massive database clusters that are the backbone of some large businesses to be taken down by something like the left pad problem. So I imagine that's part of it, and part of it just might be that's just another. We're a relatively small company, and so we have to prioritize the stuff that we add to the system, to eventing. So I imagine if there's enough feedback from customers and users that, hey, we really want to bring in these NPM packages, then we could probably, we'll probably respond and start adding that capability. But for right now, it's very, very basic JavaScript, just plain JavaScript with a couple of extra features that are Couchbase specific, like the aliases for the bucket, like cust, things like that are necessary for Couchbase. And you can also embed nickel right in here, which I don't think I'm going to need that for this example, but you could embed a query right into JavaScript here, which is very cool. Blueberry78, hello. Thank you for joining, Blueberry78. Thanks for checking out the chat. Thanks for dropping in. Okay. Is this someone that you know already, Codebase Alpha? I don't think I've seen Blueberry078 out there in the other streaming channels that I check out. I try to check out as many other streamers as possible, especially on the team live coding here on Twitch. But I can't always. There's so much great streaming content out there. I can't hang around for every single one of them. So welcome, Blueberry78. Oh, just like to be friendly. All right, fair enough. You're a friendly guy, Codebase Alpha. All right, let's get to writing some code here. I'm stalling. I'm really stalling because this is going to be brand new code and it's going to break everything, I'm sure. So, Lucid Programming. Thank you for stopping by Lucid Programming. Thank you for the follow, Blueberry78, and thank you for the follow, Rhinosaurus Rex. It looks like you two followed at the exact same time. Oh, there you go, Rhinosaurus Rex. Yeah, there's so much content. The great thing, though, is there's something for everybody now. Pretty much whatever you're into. Exactly. This was the point I was making earlier about, and it's worth bringing up again, this awesome developers streaming list is a great list of people who are streaming or live coding, not just Twitch, but lots of other places. But you can see all the different topics that are being covered here. Game development, C++, IoT, Rust, C#, .NET, Haskell, Gatsby, OpenGL, all kinds of stuff is on here. Yeah, there's not enough hours in the day, but if you're interested, there's enough people now streaming that if you're interested in something, you're going to find a tag on here. So Blueberry78, is there a website where I can post questions regarding C#? I would say there's several. I would maybe, depending on what your question is, I'd maybe start with Stack Overflow. If it's just, how do I do this in C# sort of thing. You can definitely check that out. We can also look here on this list. There's plenty of people who are streaming about C#. Thank you for the follow, Lucid Programming. I appreciate that. So, and you can also ask questions about C# here. Even though I'm doing JavaScript mainly today so far, the rest of this Customer 360 project here is in C# and ASP.NET. So if you have questions about C#, happy to answer. I'm happy to go on tangents when appropriate. Let's see. How do you record yourself in front of the monitor, by the way? So the way I do it is different than most streamers, I think, in that you can see it right there. This Chroma Cam. I don't have a green screen behind me. In fact, if I did, that would be messing with my shirt right now. But what I have is a little program called Chroma Cam, which does a pretty good job of taking out the background of my camera here, and I can just, in OBS, just put the camera right on top here, and it's all this spaced out here is transparency. Chroma Cam, I'm not sure. I'm using the free version right now. That's why you see the logo come up every once in a while. I'm not sure if I want to stick with Chroma Cam or not. I've gotten some comments that it's a little wonky. You can see in the headset area here, it's a little wonky sometimes, and sometimes my chair shows up and things like that. So I don't know. I know Calvin Allen told me he's getting a new green screen, and he might give me his secondhand leftover green screen. So we'll see how that goes. But I just realized that this shirt would probably be a real problem if I had a green screen. This new Star Trek shirt. This has Excelsior on it. So anyway, it would just be a floating head. That would be weird. All right, where was I? Yes. Yes, you're welcome for the answer. Yes, absolutely. Like I said, before, I don't know if you were here for this, but the only stupid question is the one you don't ask. So anything at all, happy to answer, happy to talk to. That's why we're here, right? This is a live interaction. This isn't me putting on a one-way sermon, a one-way lecture. This is me hanging out with everybody and answering questions and trying to get some cool stuff done. All right, so this is I copied this endpoint over from my Swagger UI. You can see this is basically the result that I expect from that API. So I'll just paste that in here. Oops. And comment it out. What's the shortcut for? Okay, so Control/, which reminds me, I haven't done this in a while, but what is the... There's a tool that shows my keyboard shortcuts on the screen. I can't remember what it's called. Crying out loud. Does anyone remember what that's called? I'll have to Google it. I have it installed, but I can't remember what it is. Show keyboard shortcuts on screen. On Scren, yeah. What is it called? Crying out loud. Karnak, yep, that's it. Karnak. I have it. It's been crashing on me every once in a while, but you can see, there we go. So Control/ will comment the block of code you have highlighted. So this is it's such a hard to remember name. So Karnak, I think of the Johnny Carson sketch, right? Wasn't he the Amazing Karnak or something? But it's spelled differently. So anyway, I have to remember to run that. And it does crash on me sometimes. I haven't quite figured out why. VS Code has screencast mode. You can enable to... Oh, really? Screencast mode. But that's only in Visual Studio Code. It's a big bar over the whole screen, kind of harder to see. Okay. Well, we'll stick with Karnak for now then, but I might check out the VS Code thing later. I do switch between Visual Studio and Couchbase and browsers and stuff. Although, I'm only using keyboard shortcuts in Visual Studio Code. So if Visual Studio has one as well, I might consider turning that on. But we're in Visual Studio Code, so this is the expected response from the some details endpoint. All right, so I have this customer doc that's coming in, and I know that the email is customer doc, and I think it might be a good idea to have an example of the customer doc, although it's a little bigger. Oh, I want to bring up, nope, not that one. Where's Megan? Yes, we're going to bring up Megan. Although it looks like it encoded it, so we'll have to change that. So Megan. This is an example of a document we expect to come in. So this is expected customer doc, and we're going to comment that. So all I really care about, I don't really care about this stuff. I'm just going to ... that. And I don't really care about type.user, although maybe we'll keep that in there. But all I really care about is customer doc.profile dot... Oh no, I'm not storing the email address in the document. Okay, so I'm doing this wrong. I need to also pass in the email address here, because that is the document key. So I care about that. So this is going to be the email. Yep, okay. All right, so we're good there. All right, so now I need to make a curl request. I've got an example of it right here. So we're going to say online store customer details equals curl. And this is the IP address to my simulator that's running inside Docker. Probably shouldn't hardcode the IP address like this, but I'm so bad with Docker networking that I couldn't figure out how to use the alias here instead. So I'm just, for now, I'm going to put in the IP address, and if someone knows Docker better than me, you can tell me how I could, what I would rather have this say a simulator right here, right? I could also set this as a configuration item somewhere in Couchbase and pull it from configuration or whatever, but keeping it simple, we're going to go with the IP address, because I know that works. And so customer deal, so this endpoint here, I'm going to, in fact, why don't we make this a variable? Just make this a little easier to read. Move that up there. Put the URL right there. So much Karnak. Okay, Karnak carnage. And we're not going to hard code an email address. That wouldn't make sense. We're going to add the email to the URL. So this is going to make a curl request. It's going to be a GET to this endpoint, and it's going to return the results. And the way curl works, in Couchbase anyway, this is, instead of returning a string, this is going to actually return the JSON result as an object. I think it's going to work that way. Okay, so now what I have is, this is my expected response. And say it's quite hard to ask questions without showing the code. I'm just trying to make a basic clock, but it doesn't work when I add 1 second every loop. It works fine if I manually put in how many seconds I want. Okay, so you've got kind of a more involved C# question there, is what you're asking about. Yeah, that's gonna be hard for me to answer or address. Yeah, I would say maybe consider Stack Overflow. Let me put address in here. StackOverflow.com. I don't know if you ever used that before, but if you post a question there, you can paste your code in there as a question and then sort of ask, what am I doing wrong here? Wait for Norwegian cookie. Wait for. I'm not really sure what that means. I guess you're maybe responding to Blueberry's comments there. But anyway, post Stack Overflow, and then if you want to, feel free to post that Stack Overflow URL right here in the chat, and so I can look at it, bring it up on the screen, or other people in the chat can check it out. If they're bored with my JavaScript nonsense, they can go check out that Stack Overflow question to get some help. Other places, I think Reddit has some C# channels you could ask there. I'm not a huge Reddit booster, but you could probably ask there. Yeah, there's other options. You could post it to GitHub and then or to Gist or something and tweet it out or Facebook it out, whatever your social network of choice is. IEnumerable function in C# with a wait for X seconds. Oh, okay, interesting. That might be one approach you could take. An IEnumerable. Yeah, that could be interesting. All right, back to where I was. So this should give me a JSON object with this result here. So what I need to do then is I want to make another request to the API because I want to follow up on that basically. So I have ID 18 and I want to get all the orders for this customer. So there's another API. I'll paste in 18 here, execute that. And now it gives me this whole, wow, lots of orders here for this customer. So this is the URL. I want to bring in the order information into my Customer 360 data as well. So this will be online store order URL, like that. But instead of hard coding 18, excuse me, I'm going to say online store customer details dot ID. Okay, online store orders, online store should be orders because it could be one or more order. And this is going to be another curl, very similar. Notice that my API here has no authentication on it whatsoever. Again, just trying to keep things simple. Okay, and now once I have the orders, the other thing I could do is I go through all these orders and get the product IDs. I haven't decided yet if I really, really want to bring in the product IDs here. In fact, looking at this now, each of these orders could have, lots of different products in them. So this one has 5 different products. That's 5 requests. This one has 3 more. That's 3 more requests. So that may not be ideal. What I may want to do, and this might be tough, is basically bring in the products as I need them and store the products themselves as separate documents in my system. I don't have an API that will give me every product. All I have is an endpoint that gives me individual product detail. So for right now, I'm going to ignore that third endpoint. I may need it going forward, but right now I'm not going to worry about it. Let's just have all the orders. Okay, so at this point, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to update the Customer 360 customer document. And then we're going to need to update, or create, or update the orders for this customer. Those are going to be separate documents for the orders. Should they be separate documents? Let me think about this some more. So each of these responses will contain 1 or more orders. Yeah, I think that's fine. So I'd have 3 order documents here. I could make this into a single document in Couchbase, but if I'm thinking towards the future, a customer, if they're a very loyal customer, for instance, they're going to have dozens or hundreds of orders. I don't want all of those stored in one document. That could potentially be unbounded, right? And my documents are limited in size. So each order has an ID, and we can just assume that orders don't change. So we're going to create the orders for this customer, if necessary, in the Customer 360 bucket. Okay. All right. So all I really need for this case is the cross-referencing stuff. And we could also update the name and email. We could do that too. So this could be different. So let's just go down here and do a little copy-paste inheritance. So we can start with this. We can say, these could be separate functions too. This is going to get a little long here. The comments aren't helping. So we can say customer doc dot. I've got profile name. Instead of loyalty, it's going to be online store customer details dot name. Yep. Okay. And again, we got the curly braces problem again here. It almost bit me. Their code base alpha. So yes. Okay, I think one of the last places I worked, I think it was our style guide that said if it's only one line under the if, this was in C#, mind you, only one line under the if, then don't use curly braces. Codebase Alpha invites you to the Dev Chatter Discord. So there you go. That's another place you could ask your question there, Blueberry. And again, if you post it somewhere, I'm happy to throw the link up here on the screen. I don't think I'm in the Dev Chatter Discord, but I do host. Dev Chatter also has a stream, which I host, auto-host, so you can check them out here on Twitch. Dev Chatter. Okay, so customer profile name. And I also need to do the cross-reference stuff again. So all this down here. But instead of loyalty, this is going to be online store. Instead of loyalty member ID, it's going to be online store customer details .id and .password. Now the casing's different, so let's just make sure the casing matches there. And down here, similar thing here and here. Yeah, thank you for doing that, Codebase Alpha. That's very nice of you to help Blueberry there find another place to ask for help. So I'm starting to think that Codebase Alpha is right, and this probably should be refactored. So I've used it 3 total times now, this very similar chunk of code, but let's get it working first, and maybe we can refactor it later. Which, speaking of getting it working first, I really should have some way to execute this outside of Couchbase to do some unit testing. But let's just see what we got to go here. So, update doc, customer doc from user store. Yeah, so the way I've constructed this is not really good here. I've done this stuff here probably should be in another function. I'm doing too much in this one function. So, return customer doc. So let's put this out here. This is going to be something else I'm going to call right here. Be another function, I think. Doing too much. Are you also... Oh, okay, let's just chatter between those two. All right. Yes. So which one update? Expected response. So, okay. I think we're good here. So I'm not going to worry about the order stuff right now. But I think I'm ready to try this. Let's go over to Couchbase here. And the thing with eventing is it's a little clunky right now. You have to sort of undeploy, make the change, and redeploy. So it'll take a little bit of time for this stuff to run. My coffee's getting cold. It's definitely cold. All right, undeployed. So I can edit this JavaScript. I'm going to just paste it all in here. Save it. And it's going to do a rudimentary check on it before I actually deploy it again. Just make sure there's not something weird with it. So when I deploy this, I have a choice basically. Are you going to redo all the documents that are in staging? Or are you just going to run on anything that happens from this point on? So I'm going to redo everything. Because what I expect to happen is for some of these documents to go from 2 cross-references to 3 cross-references, and from some of them from 1 cross-reference to 2 cross-references. So I expect this total number of documents to not change, but I expect those documents to get updated. So we're going to wait for it to deploy, and hopefully that'll won't take very long. One thing I was supposed to do is change this from 3 workers to 1. That was supposed to speed up the deployment process. I haven't done that yet. So we're just going to have to hang on here and wait for this to deploy. and kind of cross our fingers at this point. I don't really have a way to test this outside of Couchbase right now. I have some ideas how to do it. I might just spin up some JavaScript in the browser, or maybe I can run it like a test suite in Node, but I haven't done any of that stuff yet. So it's really just kind of the slow deployment. So it's deployed, and I could attach a debugger to see what happens, but let's just go back to our query here and see if anything gets updated. So something's gone wrong because I've got 6 cross-references here. I only expected a max of 3. So let's see what happened here. Retrieve docs. So we've got So online store is in there twice for some reason. Home delivery is in there twice for some reason. And what is this? Oh, that's Carrie Payette's emoji, compiled emoji. That's cool. I have an emoji too. It's this one, bada bing, bada boom, which I borrowed from Calvin Allen, who would say that a lot when we were pair programming. Worked for the same company for a while. Speaking of others housekeeping stuff, this stream I've got scheduled till about noon. Then I've got a meeting I've got to get to. So just keep that in mind. I'll be hanging around here until about noon. But I need to figure out what's going on here. So some of my code is duplicating these cross references. Why is that happening? Because it should be checking for it. So this may be a bug that I had even before I started coding today. So let's just check my cross-reference code. This is the part of the code that I would expect there to be problems with. Okay, so a customer document comes in. Blueberry's looking at similar questions on Stack Overflow right now, trying to figure it out. Yeah, sometimes you go Stack Overflow, someone's maybe already asked a question that'll help you push in the right direction. But don't let this stop you from asking a question. I know some people can be intimidated by Stack Overflow because their questions get shut down or closed the first time they ask. But hang in there. I've got a lot of privileges on Stack Overflow, so if you post your link here, I'd be happy to vote you up or make suggestions. Yeah, Stack Overflow can be frustrating sometimes, especially if you're brand new. But I've been around Stack Overflow a long time, and I'm happy to assist if you have a link you want to post there. There's a few things you can do that maybe aren't obvious at the beginning that get your question closed down. But again, happy to help, happy to step in there. And if you're asking a question the first time, there should be a little message on there that says, "Hey, this person's asking their first question on Stack Overflow, so be nice." But yeah, absolutely, it can be frustrating sometimes. Okay, so I need to figure this out. So customer documents coming in. If there are no cross references, then add a new array. So that's not a problem. That's going fine. Are we going to create a new one? Set that to be true initially. So then we loop through all of them. I got the casing right. Yep, xrefs. So is it xrefs? Yep, xrefs. So loop through all of these. So come to this one. Is it loyalty? Yeah, so if it's not loyalty, then keep going. If it's loyalty, then we don't need to create a new cross-ref. But it is creating them for some reason. External system. Do I have a typo? External underscore system equals loyalty. But somehow it's creating multiple loyalties. Even though it should be finding one as it's looping through. Yeah, this is where having a unit test or debugger would be helpful to figure out what I'm doing wrong here. Maybe it's the double equals? Xref external system. Maybe it's this. Oh, does not pass. Yeah, that could be it. I don't know if that makes a difference. But I like that better anyway. Instead of using those strings. I'm not sure why I use those strings in the first place. But I don't think that should make any difference though. Okay, and then up here in the online store. Where was it? I missed something? Oh, okay. XREF, external system. Yep. Online store. Yep, looks good there. Right here. Here we go. I don't think this should make a difference, but I like the look of it better anyway. Okay. So let's go back to my event here. Going to undeploy this event. While I'm doing that, I'm going to go and clear out this customer 360 bucket because it's got some data in there that is got duplication and I don't like it. So gone. You're all gone, all zero, which is fine because all our staging documents are still there. So we can run the event again and it'll process them all again. So once it's undeployed, we can go in there and make changes to the JavaScript, save, and deploy. And again, we're going to redo everything instead of just from now. So it's going to run this on all the documents that are currently in staging, run it through again. It's good to see that the curl stuff is working though. That was what I was kind of worried about, was these curl requests right here. I would have written them wrong or put the wrong URL in or something, but those seem to be working. So it's actually returning data. So that's good. So I'm expecting each one of these documents in staging to fire off at least one curl request. So we can see that we're firing off 63, probably 62 HTTP requests. Yeah, 62 to our to this online store API. So that's everything's being handled there just fine. So that's a good thing. We're still deploying. Okay, deployed. So at this point, yep, 52 documents show up. Let's check them out. So I'm not seeing online store in any of these. Why is that? They should all have online store in them. Oh, there's one online store. Is it just taking some time? Let's go back to my cross-reference query. Yeah, so there shouldn't be any that have one. Something's not right here for sure. Oh boy. Let me get a quick Twitter distraction here. Yeah. Quick email distraction. A lot of follows today. Very cool. Thank you. And I appreciate that, especially when C# Fritz started the same time as me today. So I definitely appreciate you all stopping in and checking this channel out. While C# Fritz got a much more popular stream than me, is going on at the same time. So I appreciate you all dropping in. But I'm kind of wondering why my code isn't working. Okay, well, I think I can take you through the debugger. We can try it at least. I'd much rather, so here's something I've been experimenting with. I created just a really simple web page here that I can paste in my JavaScript code and just run it here in a browser. This is in lieu of any sort of real test suite in Node or something. This is kind of half testing, half IDE. Just kind of been experimenting with. But it takes a lot of setup for this to actually do anything. So I don't know. It's worth a shot, I guess. So the function I'm testing is here in online. On update. Need to give love to other streams. Yeah, appreciate that. Okay, so that's the code, and then I've got some other stuff here. This is my console output from last time. And yeah, this is just kind of hacky. But let's bring in my new function that I wrote, which is, yeah, this one here. But the thing is that that curl isn't going to, man, so annoying, because that curl is not a function that's available in the browser, I don't think, either. So I actually define that. Just something I do here. Right here, curl. I'm just sort of, this is just kind of a mock, like a fake. Yeah, this is not going to work. But I was experimenting with this last couple of days, and I don't know. I think like a command line, like test runner would be better, I think. Okay, well, let's see. I've got this. We'll just paste that in here, there at the bottom. And we'll say that equals function, like so. Okay. So let's just see what happens when I run. Ingest loyalty system. So let's put a log in here. Ingest, and this is going to be online store. And run. Okay, so it's hitting the online store. Good. And I can't set a breakpoint here in CodeLens. I'm using CodeLens for this, editing this in a browser, by the way. Let's log custom doc and customer doc. See what happens. That should be an object. Yep, so we'll stringify that. So I'm going to stringify just to get a visual output of what's going on here. Yeah, it's all scrunched in there. So bring up my favorite tool, JSON lint. I think this will work. Yep, that formats it for me. So loyalty online source. So that seems to be working how it's supposed to work. Putting loyalty and online store in there. So something else is going on. Yeah, so definitely like this one right here. Well, let me just double check. Let me see is that person actually in the online store. Aha! So, okay. I'm kind of in a weird state here. I think that's the problem. Anyway, with that is there are some fake users I've created in other systems that are not in the online store. Now, in reality, they should be, well, should they be? Maybe not. Maybe I just need to account for that. Maybe they're not in the online store, so that's probably fine. So that's one problem. The other problem is there should be nobody here that has more than 3 cross-refs. For some reason, online store is in here twice. And I bet if I run that, online store is in here twice. Let me just look at that code again. Online store. Should be checking for online store. And it should only create one if online store is not already in there. Online store, yeah, okay. It's fine. This isn't actually modifying anything, is it? only place it should be modifying is here in, yeah, so that's not it. That wouldn't work anyway, because it's set to read only. Or, no, never mind. Yeah, I'm not even modifying the staging bucket. I'm only modifying the customer 360. And that shouldn't trigger any new events, because I don't have any created other than this one. I say trigger. Don't use the word trigger when you're talking about events, because they're not like normal database triggers. Let's see. So I kind of want to bring up the debugger, but I'm a little bit afraid because attaching the debugger requires certain ports to be open on Docker, and I don't know if I set all the correct ports to be open there. So I just kind of want to eyeball this and just figure out what I did wrong. I mean, we're getting closer. We're definitely closer. So the fact that online store is showing up here is good, but the fact that it's showing up here twice is not good. So if is an online store, then we don't create a new one. Online store details, the ID and password. So those are getting set. External ID and password. They're showing up there. Well, they're getting created here. I don't know if they're necessarily getting set here, but they're getting created here. So if create new crossref. So maybe this check is failing for some reason. Does it need to be triple equals? External system equals online store. So this check might be failing. That's what I'm thinking. But why would it fail? Xref to online system, or Xref to external system. Line 107, Codebase Alpha says. Yeah, so this is, I'm pushing a new item to the array, but that should only happen if I need to create a new one. And if one already exists, then this should be set to false. And this is, again, my hacky JavaScript. Using this little Boolean flag here, whether or not we should create a new one. That should only be happening if we need to create a new cross-reference. Which means if one already exists, like here, it should find this one. Oh, it should find this one and not create this one, but it is. Could you try using if-else there at 107? What kind of if-else are you expecting to see there? No, 101. Oh, you're saying 101. Line 101. So if create this, then you're saying else. Else what? Else we're just not creating. Oh, info, I guess. Not creating a new crossref. But I've already made that decision up here. I'm not creating a new one, I'm updating the existing one. Log something in both cases. Yeah, okay. So up here it's saying log info, creating a new crossref. And actually, now I'm looking at it, this might not actually update them. I'm not really sure. Again, my JavaScript knowledge, but I'm pulling this out of this collection and then setting it here. I'm assuming that it's going to update it. Like this is just like a reference to the actual crossref item. That may not be the case, but either way, it should not be creating additional online stores. At the very least, it will not be updating it. So this, I have to check this to make sure this works. Again, unit test will be good here. but it shouldn't be creating a new one. That's the weird thing. So maybe a log message here. Updating existing crossref. And I probably should put the key in here, so we know which one we're actually updating or not. This is just going to be email, should be good enough. Yeah, this really needs to be some sort of Node app that I can run some unit tests on. Anybody out there using Node, and what do you use for your unit tests? Something really, really simple. I don't want to add in a bunch of I don't want to Node modules to the moon. Just on a really simple way to run unit tests in Node. So I could feed this into and write some tests around each of these functions. So that might be something I have to explore, because this is just kind of slow going to do this. And my browser experiment, I don't think is really working. This is sort of a half measure here. This is all stuff that should be test setup code, I think. And well, some of this anyway. So it's just kind of a mess. So I'm probably going to get rid of this. All right. Well, I think we'll probably just call it a day for now. Kind of stuck here. I don't want to spin my wheels on the stream. But yeah, we made some progress. We got online store coming in now. It's just duplicate data we don't need. But we've got all the data in there. Some of it we have too much of, but we've got all the data coming in. So at this point, once I get this hammered out, I need to bring in the orders data, which is where is that? Up here. I put a to-do for that. So this just needs to ping another endpoint and then import any new orders from there. So there's a little bit more logic to that. So I need to get that knocked out. And at that point, the code will be done from end to end. So I need to start actually running the tutorial and taking some screenshots and that kind of stuff. So that's a process. I plan to have all this done by today and get running tutorial and get something into staging today, but that's not going to happen. So my plan right now is, look at my calendar here, get something out to staging by Friday. So by staging, I mean there's an area on Couchbase documentation called staging, which is not, it's just sort of a temporary place to deploy documentation, tutorials, things like that, before they get pushed out to the full documentation site. So I wanted to have something on staging by Friday, but by today, but that's not happening. So Friday is my plan. So all right, so that's where we'll leave it for now. Anything else I wanted to cover? I think that's about it. So thanks everyone for joining me. Codebase Alpha, Blueberry, Rhinosaurus Rex, Lucid Programming, Dacron 12, Pat10B. Thank you all for following and dropping into the chat. Blueberry, if you have that link, if you have a question, now's the time to post it in there so I can take a look at it on Stack Overflow. But otherwise, if you've found some help there in the Dev Chatter channel, that's good too. So good luck with that. And if you can consider streaming, doing your own line stream, kind of showing off the interesting stuff you're building with C#, I tune into that for sure. In fact, why don't I just give you a follow, so I know if you decide to stream. Oops, darn it. Blueberry 78. So I will follow you. And I can't. I'm trying to. Oh yeah, Codebase Alpha. See you next time. Okay, so I got you followed there, Blueberry Alpha. So if you decide to stream something, let me know. I will check it out. All right, that's it for today. Again, thank you very much for everybody. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. Have a good one.